Hello, everybody, and for the benefit of those listening on the audio, you're listening to James. It's me, and my regular YouTube live stream. Ask James, like I forgot who I am. Yep, it's Friday. It's nearly FPL deadline time. Just to timestamp this for those on the audio, it's just gone 5 p.m. UK time, and over the next hour or so, I'll be covering questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. Before I get into the questions, some essential game week 8 team news for you. Romelu Lukaku is fit for Chelsea's trip to Brentford tomorrow, but Antonio Rudiger has been ruled out. I haven't got a timeline yet on his injury, but I think it's probably a case of he only misses next week. I own him, so I need to make a decision on what I'm going to do, but my first thoughts is probably to keep. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are both unlikely to be fit for Everton's game against West Ham on Sunday. Rafinha is in the air at the moment. Is he going to play at Southampton? God knows. I can't believe it if he does. But again, I own him as well, and I'm probably going to play him. For Leicester, there were doubts about Kelechi Iheanacho. He's fit. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Diogo Jota are both fit for Liverpool. Alisson and Fabinho have gone directly to Spain ahead of Liverpool's trip to Atletico Madrid in midweek. For Manchester City, Ferran Torres, who was popular in the run-up to this game week, has been ruled out for between 2 and 3 months, according to Pep Guardiola. Marcus Rashford will make a return to the Manchester United squad tomorrow. And for Newcastle, the only injury doubts are... or the only people ruled out, are Martin Dubravka and Paul Dummett. That means Jamal Lascelles, John Joe Shelby and Callum Wilson all return to the Newcastle squad. Che Adams is ruled out for Southampton. And for West Ham, David Moyes has said that there are 1 or 2 issues. Wouldn't elaborate on them. Actually said that he wouldn't tell those in the press room if he knew that he had people definitely out. But he did speak at length about Mikel Antonio, and I think we can assume from Moyes' quotes that there is no issue with Antonio going into Sunday. That's kind of your essential team news for the weekend. Let's get into the questions. Mohammed Cameraman says, "Good evening, James. Hope you're well. Loved the last People's Poll. Look forward to the stream. Thanks. Much appreciated, Mohammed." Yeah, do you know what? The Newcastle pod on Tuesday was a difficult one to do. Because really, we could have probably done 5 hours worth, and there probably still would have been bits that we missed off. So I know there was, you could have spoken about this, you could have spoken about that. We didn't have a lot of that feedback. Most people really enjoyed the content. I think we tried to keep it balanced and look at it from both angles and both perspectives, and try and understand the psyche of how a Newcastle United fan's feeling at the moment. We enjoyed doing it. It's a difficult conversation for people to talk about at the moment. I think that fairly clearly, forget the competitive nature. Most people do not want these people running a football club in the United Kingdom, whether it was Newcastle United, Rochdale, Manchester United, wouldn't matter. The majority of us are obviously not comfortable with it. JFPL said, "Hi James, Emmanuel Dennis to Adam Armstrong from -4 won't be wildcarding for at least 5 or 6 weeks. Well, if you're happy to judge it over a longer period, then yeah, crack on, make the transfer. I mean, with Che Adams out as well, you would have thought almost certain that Adam Armstrong will start for Southampton against Leeds tomorrow. Armando Broja's obviously there and an option for Southampton as well. Nathan Redmond basically played up front in the last game. But I think Dennis's place is up for threat very soon for Watford as well, with João Pedro back fit. They've got a new manager. It's very unpredictable in terms of what Claudio Ranieri will do. Remember, he was the original Tinkerman. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. It's not ideal as a -4 because I'm not sure that you'll get the immediate return from it. You probably want Armstrong to get 2 attacking returns for that to be worthwhile this week. But if you've got future moves in mind, then yeah, crack on. Make it, mate. Dragan Josifsky says, "Hi James, Brentford fixture swing. Yes, and there is one coming, absolutely. Will controlling matches leave less room for counters and increase the appeal of Tony while impacting Mbeumo? A little bit like Adama Traore. Cheers." Well, what makes us assume that Brentford are going to control these matches? Wouldn't think they would control the match at home to Leicester. Would they control the match at Burnley? Not even convinced they'd control the match against Norwich or Newcastle in the 2 games afterwards. So in terms of controlling matches, Dragon, I'm not convinced that will necessarily be a thing, actually. I think Brentford have realised that in terms of the personnel quality, actually, look, they're weaker than 15, 16 teams in this league. They found a solution that is working very, very well for them at the moment. So I wouldn't expect them to suddenly change and become the free-flowing attacking team that you might have seen in the Championship 2 years ago. So I don't think there's a massive effect in that. In terms of like comparing, say, Mbuemo to Traore needs space. That's very clear. And Mbuemo, a little bit different. He's got more movement in and around the box. He wants to get into the penalty area. Traore is not the sort of player you're ever really going to see score with like a 6-yard tap in and stuff. So I wouldn't read too much into that. It's a fair theory that, what's going to happen when they have more control of games. But I'm not actually convinced that they will. 333 Marson says, "Hi James, hope you're well. Ronaldo and Gray to De Bruyne and Armstrong, or Mbuemo and Kane. Now's not the time to buy Harry Kane. The time to buy a Harry Kane will be game week 12 or game week 13 if that's what you want to do. Now's not the time to buy Harry Kane. Yep, look, good fixture this weekend. Do I fancy Harry to score at the weekend? Yes. Then it's West Ham away, United at home, Everton away. He's not going to go big in them games, mate. He's not worth it for the money. For the stretch from game week 12 to game week 15, he may very well be worth the money, but he's not at the moment. So therefore, I would have to advise the other option of Gray and De Bruyne. De Bruyne gives you an interesting alternative captaincy prospect, I think, particularly this week, and also in game week 10. Quite interesting, because Liverpool host Brighton, Chelsea go to Newcastle, and they might have a new manager by that point. We can confirm Steve Bruce will be in charge this weekend. Tottenham and Manchester United play each other. I think game week 10, very interesting. These City players will offer another alternative captaincy, as they're doing this week. I think those opposing Mohamed Salah this week probably wants a captain, a Manchester City player, and I can certainly understand why with the history of that fixture. Mo Edine says, start Tony or Adama. PS, I'm playing both Azpilicueta and Christensen, and Trincao is out. Thanks. So, Trincão's obviously got COVID. He's isolating, so you would assume that Traore starts away to Aston Villa. But it could easily be Podence and Hwang off of Jimenez. So there is still another alternative. Personally, I would want to play Tony, but I do understand what you're saying there, Mo, in terms of, look, you're on an all-in strategy. Azpilicueta and Christensen look almost certain to start. A Tony goal is actually not good for you in terms of wiping out the clean sheet potentially for your double Chelsea at the back. So I get it. I just don't particularly fancy Adama Traore. And if Brentford were to beat Chelsea 1-0 and Tony scores the goal, you'll feel a lot better. I think just looking at it as Tony versus Traore, I'd go Tony, personally. I'm nearly always, and those regular viewers of mine on YouTube will know, I will regularly favour going with the forward. I understand the theory here where you want to go for an all-in strategy. I get that. I think if I had that choice, honestly, I think I'd just pick Tony, mate. Rory Lynch says, I have 4 premium, half premium options. Who do I captain? Vardy, Son, Lukaku or Salah? So we can kill the captaincy debate here. For me, if you've got Mo Salah, that's the end of it. It's not a lot to think about this week. Playing one of the weakest teams in the league. He's in red hot form. I actually think he might even play through the middle tomorrow, which, depending on your take on that, might influence if you think that's a good or a bad thing. But he's absolutely flying at the moment. There's no doubt in my mind in terms of captain Mo Salah that if we get some news just before the deadline that there's some sort of doubt, like a few people got about Ronaldo 2 Saturdays ago, then shift it elsewhere. From the rest of your options, Lukaku, I think, personally. Not that I'd expect Vardy, Son, or if you ask me, Vardy, Son, Lukaku, I think they could all score this weekend, but I wouldn't expect any of them to go particularly big. I'd probably just go Lukaku in case Chelsea scored early and they exposed Brentford if Brentford were chasing the game, possibly. But nah, Salah, it's nothing to overthink this week, Rory. Nothing to overthink. Think of it this way as well. If Mo Salah is benched, listen, there's so many other people going to be in the same boat as you looking at a potential one-pointer, and I can't see that he is going to be honest. I think he's pretty safe. FTLOL, I did say that about Ronaldo 2 weeks ago though. FTLOL podcast says, afternoon James, if Rafinha doesn't play, I have Cody coming off the bench. Is it worth a -4 to get in any defender below 5.5 million? Will be a fairly long-term view as wildcard in game week 15-16. Below, so it doesn't include Laporte presumably, who is 5.5. Below, Christensen, Kieran Tierney. If you're taking a long-term view, I don't mind making the transfer, but then it's worth saying on a longer-term view, you could make a case that this weekend's fixture for Wolves might even be their hardest up till they play Liverpool in game week 15. So actually, if you're taking a longer term view, just leave Connor Cody. Actually, would probably be my view on that. So I'm gonna have to say no. It's not like one where, say, like the earlier question with Dennis, you look at their run and go, oh, that's rubbish. Actually, like as a defensive cover on the bench, I mean, Cody's fine to keep. So I'm gonna say no on that one, mate. Mo also says, hi James, do you follow any other league apart from English football? Follow, yes. Do I have time to watch? Not particularly. So I try and keep an eye particularly on the Championship and the lower leagues in England, a little bit on the Scottish Premier. In terms of overseas European leagues, I used to watch La Liga religiously going back a decade or so. Not now. I haven't got the time, unfortunately. So cut long story short, Mo, no, not really. Andre Sosa says, on wildcard, would you still keep Rudiger with a backload of Rudiger, Alexander-Arnold, Diaz, Livramento, Duffy? Future moves already planned in mid and forward, want to keep a steady defence. No. I'd go Azpilicueta instead of Rudiger, personally. I think if I was wildcarding now, I would be Azpilicueta, Trent, Cancelo, Livramento, and either another cheapie or in and around Tierney's level, perhaps even Christensen if you've got the bench cover, Laporte. That's the kind of idea that I would have. So no, I would pay the extra for Azpilicueta and make a sacrifice somewhere else. I think you can always reverse that further down the line and come back down for Rudiger. But no, I would think I'd just go Azpilicueta. Simeon Wenzel says, double City defence surely better than double Chelsea defence for those on wildcard, or have I missed something? Seeing more teams with double Chelsea despite worse defensive stats and similar fixture run. Well, Chelsea have got a great next 4, City have got a great next 3, and then I would argue quite a challenging 4, although Man City are capable of keeping a clean sheet any day, and then City do have a very good run from game week 15 onwards. Chelsea have an indifferent Christmas and a more difficult run from game week 12 and 13. So it depends on your outlook. It's going to come down to personal opinion, isn't it? I think the other thing is there's always the consciousness of doubt about City that in terms of rotation, and I think that back 4, like, it would be a surprise if that's not the back 4 against Burnley tomorrow. But at the same time, it wouldn't be a surprise if it changed because we know what Guardiola's like. I think in the case of, say, Rudiger Azpilicueta, we could say, yeah, they're always going to play, basically. And I've said Rudiger's a 9 out of 10 player, basically. So we can assume that his break will be this week. I think if I was going double now, I agree, I would probably go City. I'd probably go, as I said, like Cancelo, Trent, Azpilicueta, so one from each. A cheap one, Livramento, and then it's either another cheap or it's mid-price. If it was at the 5.5 range, because of Rudiger's injury, it would now be Laporte for me, personally. But I can understand, it's close, Simeon. It's close. It's down to personal preference, I think. Steve Jones, thank you very much to Steve who provided our quiz for our patrons yesterday. Says, hi James, assuming you've seen the Rafinha flight trackers today on Twitter. Yes, although I haven't seen any in the last 3 hours or so. Imagine how rich some of the FPL community would be if they invested their time into stocks and shares rather than FPL. Go and tell Karam, Taser and the others who are tracking Rafinha's flight, and go and tell them that, mate. Yeah, maybe they're in the wrong game, quite possibly. On Rafinha, as I kind of said at the top, I think I'm going to play him. The reason I'm going to play him, basically, and this morning I basically was like, I'm going to leave him on the bench. But I think now I've decided I'm going to play him because I think if he doesn't play, which I don't expect him to, and it's probably a 1-pointer, then fine, so be it. So be it. Even if he'd been playing on Tuesday, Wednesday, I guess there was a possibility that he could have been benched this week. Whereas if it goes the other way and he doesn't actually start and I've left him on the bench, I think I want to shoot myself. Therefore, I would not want to see that team drop. And oh my God, he's in the team. Shit. And he's sitting on my bench. And you know his sod's law would be the 1 week all my other players play. Possibly the fact that I've got Rudiger as well. If I don't make any further moves, he's going to have to play at the moment anyway. But I think, yeah, I'd come to the conclusion before the Rudiger news that I was going to start with him anyway for exactly that reason. That he could start. he could pull out 60, 65 minutes and he could do well in that period. Mo Adine says, who is the biggest trap in FPL and why is it Man City midfielders? Well, I don't think we can say that it is. We haven't got the information. Personally, it's not for me at the moment. I understand why everyone wants one. The historical of Burnley, Brighton and Palace next look like really good fixtures. I just ain't got a clue what Guardiola's going to do. And exactly that. I mean, Ferran Torres hadn't started the last 3 games and now he's out injured long term anyway. It could easily be that Foden suddenly left out the team and he plays in the cups in midweeks. I'd highly recommend listening to COTC yesterday where Johnny FPL Pringle, our City correspondent, his inclination was that Jack Grealish might be in for a few rests in the coming weeks, which would be good news for those who want to go Foden. I think Mahrez is probably the one, bar Kevin De Bruyne. From an affordability perspective, Mahrez is the one that's extremely interesting for those who are looking for the 1 week punt. I think if I was buying a player for 1 week, I think I would go Mahrez, with Jesus obviously been ruled out for City as well because he's travelling. I think it would be Mahrez. I think Foden's the one that's obviously extremely interesting. That's what Johnny said yesterday. I think it's not going to be for me. It's not going to be for me. There are players from Liverpool and Everton have outscored these players so far, and I realise there's mitigating circumstance for those reasons, but they just tend to share all the points around, don't they? Is the reality. It's not for me. Are they traps? It's difficult to say. I really don't like the word trap. You know, if someone says, is someone a trap? Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't see into the future. I suspect that Phil Foden could be a very good asset. I'm pretty sure Kevin De Bruyne will be at a certain point. I don't personally think it's quite worth the money at the moment, unless, like the previous questioner, you've got loads of money spare and it's suddenly viable for you. Okay, I get it. And I think Mahrez for the 1 game tomorrow is very, very interesting. Dave Wilcox says, hi James, got Rudiger, Traore, Alonso, non-playing striker and Rafinha. Alonso to Cancelo and non-striker to Tony enough, or -8 time? The thing is, you could take -8 and the players you bring in might get you 6 points and therefore you're just better off just going with 8-9 players. It's a reality, and it's the fear sometimes, isn't it? Oh my God, I've got to get players on the pitch. Yeah, but actually get players on the pitch who are going to return. So like City, you could look at, I could take a -4 for Cancelo. He might not even play, but in my case, I'd be looking at it as a longer term. Okay, look, I want João Cancelo for the next 6-7 game weeks. I want to move on Luke Shaw, for example, who's got rough fixtures, not doing particularly well at the moment. I'd look at that and go, if I don't do it now, I'm probably not going to do it. Next week, City got another good fixture. Shaw's got Liverpool next week. It's like, well, I might be taking a -4 for it next week. And if that's my view, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should just get on with it and do it. But if you're just getting players in for the sake of getting players in, don't bother. We have this conversation a lot with game week 29, or it would be game week 30 this year, I think, with the FA Cup quarterfinals. And it's like, how worth it is it to get playing players in? It's like the -4 always kind of equates it. -8, nah. Say you take that extra -4 to the -8 for Tony. Playing Chelsea tomorrow, like, what do you honestly expect? What's the best case scenario? Tony scores, he gets a 6 or 7, you're 2-3 points up. The reality is you're likely just an extra couple of points down, right? Depends who you're getting in. Hamish Holmes says, howdy James, congrats to you and Suj being in the mix for the awards last night. Thank you. Just before I finish your question, big shout out to obviously the boys from FPL Wire, big man backer so far, and late riser for winning the best podcast at the FCAs. Shout out to Mark and Az from Black Box for winning best in video, and shout out to everybody who's contributed to Fantasy Football Scout and helping them win best editorial. Just to cover it, because I've had a lot of questions on it, we never asked for a vote on a single podcast or in a tweet or anything. We just let it go. There was a lot of frustration with the way the awards were handed out last year. Had we pushed it, I think you'd have still got the same result, by the way, and the guys who won those awards were very, very deserving. To finish Hamish's question, it's saying the Twitter bubble seems to be going Cancelo over Diaz, but I value security at starts now. Zinchenko is back. How about you? Well, to be honest, if it's a choice between Diaz and Laporte, I just go Laporte. It's Cancelo versus Diaz. Cancelo all day long for me. Go with the ceiling. It's big. It's worth it, in my opinion. It's worth it. Cancelo's probably about the only player that could genuinely push Trent to be top scoring defender, I think, across the whole season. Now, we need the starts for that. But yeah, I would definitely go Cancelo over Diaz, personally. One of the things I was thinking prior to Rudiger's injury, I bought Livramento late last night for Ayling to give me a little bit extra cover. Once I knew Ayling had been ruled out for like another 3 weeks or so I could get that moved on. But I could have gone Ayling to Laporte straight away. And one of the things I decided was I actually it represents what you're thinking a little bit, Hamish, was I could have got Laporte, and I'm looking at it and going, I'm sitting there with Laporte and Rudiger now. And it's okay, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather have the offensive fullbacks where possible. So, and I think in the Chelsea case, I'd look at it and go, I've said it so many times, Reece James, Alonso, Chilwell, that whole rotating gimmick does my head in. By the way, the fact that Rudiger is out for Chelsea almost definitely means that Ben Chilwell will play for Chelsea tomorrow rather than Marcus Alonso. Marcus Alonso basically only plays for Chelsea when Rudiger's available. That's the pattern trend. I thank Gary Fantamantle for pointing that out to me. But I hate that Chelsea wing-back conundrum. So that's the one where I go, right, that's the one where I want the security of the starts. Man City have an outstanding attacking defender in Cancelo, and he's worth paying the extra for, in the same way that I think Trent's worth paying the extra for over Van Dijk. I mean, how many of us actually sit there and go, well, I'd rather have Matip than Trent? Now, I realise in Matip's case there's less security about the starts. It's a good saving of like $2.5 million though, basically, isn't it? But we don't talk about getting Matip. We don't talk about him as a good option or anything. So no, I would go Cancelo. Chelsea is the one where personally, that's where I'd want the security of the starts. City and Liverpool, I want the offensive players. Gary Speaks says, should I transfer in De Bruyne or Sterling or Mahrez or Foden or Grealish or Gundogan or Bernardo Silva to replace Trincao? Which one is the best? And I have enough money. If you've got enough money, just buy De Bruyne, right? I've kind of covered this already, so I'm not going to go into it anymore on the City mids. Hasselbank's win. James, what are your thoughts on the standard of commentary these days? BT Sport is horrendous. Yes, it is. McManaman, Savage, Peter Walton. My goodness, who are clowns? Yes. We need to return to the old days of Gray and Clive. I don't know about Andy Gray. I don't think anyone particularly wants that back. Clive Tilsley, yeah, fine. We'll have that. I tend not to pay too much attention to commentary because it's not great the majority of the time. I mean, the analysis is token gesture, isn't it? Tell you the stuff you see, which but for most people, I realise some people watch TV and can't see because they're blind. So it's nice to have the retold story of what's going on. Personally, I don't need that. I need insight into the game, and if you can't give me it, I'm not particularly interested in what you've got to say. So, I mean, the only thing, the commentary I find genuinely is useful, and the only reason I actually bother with it still is because they know if there's a VAR check going on. Whereas if I don't have the volume on, I may not. And that's basically the only use I find in having commentary. Jordan Williams says, who would you take a 1 week punt on for Rudiger? We'll have 5.8 to spend planning to wildcard next week. 1 week punt. To replace Rudiger. I think to kind of contradict what I've just said in terms of the value there, possibly say Laporte, maybe even Cole Walker, actually, for the 1 week punt. Christensen is not attacking returns. I wouldn't bother with that. 1 week punt. Trevor Chalobah, maybe even for Chelsea in that specific scenario, might be the way to go. It's got good. Was he return like 11 points per game or something? So it's something crazy, and it's obviously highly unlikely to continue. But he's probably more of an attacking threat at set pieces than Christensen, for example. So I'm guessing at the moment that the back three for Chelsea tomorrow will be Azpilicueta, Christensen and Chalobah. I'm guessing, because Thiago Silva won't play either. Thomas Tuchel confirmed that before he even went away with Brazil and reiterated it today. So Trevor Chalobah could be an interesting one. Matt Lakin says, hi James, first time watching live, thanks for the great content. Is KDB worth the extra on the likes of Grealish, Foden on wildcard, and want to bring him in but would mean sacrificing Trent or Antonio? Matt, I highly recommend listening to Johnny on yesterday's Clash to Correspondence. He knows the finite details of his team far better than I do. Personally, on a wild card right now, I would probably go with Phil Foden as an attacking asset, and I think that's probably it. I think that's probably Johnny's opinion as well. I really like Mahrez for this weekend, but I know it would be a headache very, very quickly. I'm fairly certain. Literally as early as next week, you'd be like, oh, is he playing? And obviously if he doesn't play tomorrow, you're like, what is this? I wouldn't pay the money for KDB at the moment, personally, because I just think Lukaku and Salah cover the captaincy absolutely fine for the next few weeks. Then it opens back up where Ronaldo's got a very good game week 12. Kane and Son have got really good game week 12 to 15, as I said. So De Bruyne, similar to what I said about Bruno Fernandes pre-season, when am I sticking the armband on him? I mean, he's a great player to have as vice-captain, but he's not there. He's not there to captain KDB, in my opinion. Not as the best choice, anyway. Peter G says, hi James, Sky question. Are you taking Ward-Prowse out and who for? Yes, I have taken Ward-Prowse out. Do you listen to the Sky Pods, Peter? It took James Ward-Prowse out the day after he got suspended, my friend, or sent off at Chelsea, rather. And my effective replacement for James Ward-Prowse basically was Emi Martinez, which I get sounds a little bit weird, but I did a switcheroo about with certain personnel. I sold Jose Sarr, and I also brought in Aymeric Laporte. So, I mean, technically, obviously you can't go Ward-Prowse to Martinez. Technically, in the Sky format, and you can do this depending on formation for the FPL listeners, technically I went Laporte. But because of the coverage of the Southampton Villa game, technically at the same time his replacement for me was basically Emi Martinez. So now he's gone. I think if you've got this far, you're probably looking at an Arsenal player on Monday, Peter. Is probably what you're looking at. Otherwise, I'd probably keep. It's a shame the 2 games he's missing in Leeds, Burnley. That said, you wouldn't have expected him to get passing tier against Leeds, and actually you don't often get the passing tier against Burnley as well, so you really would have been relying on the attacking returns, which, listen, as proven, he's a penalty taker, right? He can get attacking returns in any game, JWP. He'll be a miss for them, by the way. He'll be a big miss for them next couple of games. For that, just from the point of view, more than anything, that they're so used to him being there. He's become a leader for them, right? He hasn't missed a game for over 2 years or so. It depends, Peter. If you're looking for Arsenal Monday, I think that's probably your solution. Otherwise, fair shout to say keep it. I don't think there's anything tomorrow majorly. You could make a case possibly to go into Everton on Sunday. Might be a different solution for you. Perhaps a Damari Gray or a Decore, for example. Or obviously, if you've got 4 in midfield, move that money defensively, perhaps. Tamme Gord, hi James, stick or twist with Jota? Well, I'm sticking. Next week could be gone. They obviously have a tough few. I think it's fair to say Liverpool. United away is tough. Brighton at home, he's okay. West Ham away is tough. Arsenal at home's okay, but it's not a brilliant 4 fixture. So they've got the Merseyside derby 2 after that as well. So I think he is going to go for me. I haven't decided if it's Greenwood or him that will go next week, which ironically means Harvey Barnes is probably still going to hang around for me. But I just think I'd be loath to sell him ahead of Watford, personally. And of course, there's a good chance he could be left out. Just on that, I think because Thiago's unavailable, Fabinho's unavailable, and Curtis Jones is out as well, I think there's a possibility tomorrow that all 4 of the Liverpool forwards will start. And that's what I meant about Salah through the centre earlier, is that I can see them going 4-2-3-1. If they do, the shape will probably be Mane left, Firmino at 10, Jota on the right, Salah through the middle. The reason for that is when they play a 4-2-3-1, and they did this late in the game at Brentford, the 2 wide players have to track back, whereas in Liverpool's 4-3-3 they don't have to do that as much, and therefore the 2 that Klopp trusts is Jota and Mane, because he doesn't want Mo Salah ending up in right back positions and stuff. And I think that's possible. And I think you're looking at a midfield for Liverpool tomorrow of Henderson and Keita maybe. If it's a free, then it's probably Oxlade-Chamberlain or Milner plays in there. But I wouldn't. That's my point. I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 start tomorrow. Then that's quite exciting. If you sort of, if I said to you now, all 4 of them are going to start tomorrow, you think, oh, want to keep him. I think so. And of course, as we've seen many times, even if he doesn't start, he can do the damage in half hour. I think the right time to leave it is next week or a little bit beyond. It might be that he stays, and it might be getting rid of Mason Greenwood's a bigger priority for me. I'm fairly certain at least one of them will go next week. To be honest, it's very unlikely that both will go, because I'm part looking to work the money to manoeuvre to get Heung-min Son in, and I'm in no urgency to do that next week. As I already said, West Ham away, United at home, Everton away is not a great free fixtures for Tottenham. So it's slowly moving the money about. One of them will likely go next week. I think, in all honesty, Jota might survive till game week 11 for me. And once he's survived that long, depending on what his form's like, he may end up sticking around. Christian before says, yo, baby James, Neil Maupay, price rises to 6.6. So I guess people aren't listening to you, or should you change your mindset? You got a real issue with Neil Maupay, ain't you? Where was his attacking return against Arsenal, mate? It might have anything to do with the fact he's playing Norwich this week. I'll tell you what, if he blanks, it'd be 6.5 by the time he plays Liverpool in game week 10. Tom Campbell says, afternoon pal, do you like Sarr over Livramento this weekend? Yes, Tom. I would definitely play an Ismaila Sarr over a Livramento. No doubt about it. What for talisman, mate? Irrespective of what Ranieri does with that team, and there's a little bit of unknown, I think there's a good chance it might even be the same team that lost to Leeds. But whatever he does with it, Ismaila Sarr is Watford's talisman. And there's not a question about it in my mind. So he plays. He plays irrespective. It's not like he hasn't done the damage against them before as well, right, TC? So he'd play for me, and I wouldn't have a doubt about it. Same with a player, by the way. Ivan Toney and Puemo. I'd pick all these players ahead. Rafinha, because of the capability. I'd pick all them players over Livramento this week. Gary Mantle says, hi mate, just wondered your thoughts on a triple City defence. Don't hate it. This is the guy, remember, who in 2019 started the season with Trent, Robbo and Van Dijk, and they all stayed till around about game week 8 or something. And then eventually when I sold one, I think they kept a clean sheet. They kept conceding like one goal every week. That's unlikely to be the case with City. I don't mind that at all. If you're going to go down that route, the two that I would definitely have is Laporte and Cancelo, and then you can make your choice on the next one. I'd probably save the money on Walker over Diaz, actually, probably. But I can understand if you can afford to pay them more, you pay them more, fine. Hamish says, Rudiger out this weekend, but surely a hold for you. Yeah, I think so. What I'd need to try and dig in, I've not had the time this afternoon over the last couple of hours, Hamish, is try and get an understanding of, like, is it possible that he could be out for longer? Because if he's out for longer, he goes. Like, even if there's a chance that he's out for longer, I'll get rid. I can't be having that sitting there all week. Oh, because it's Norwich at home, and then he don't play. That's shite. So, but my instinct is, yeah, hold. So, to be honest, even though I've got Rudiger, I'm more likely to go Luke Shaw to Cancelo than Rudiger to Cancelo. And I think, by the way, you asked the question, Hamish, you'll understand my thinking there. I'm kind of prepared to say I might end up with 10 players this week. I mean that because my 11th player is probably going to be Matt Lowton if I need someone to come off the bench, and that's possibly a -1 away to Man City. I might be better that his 0 or -1 stays on the bench. Joey B93G, evening mate, would you do -4 to take out Ronaldo and Shaw for Lukaku and Cancelo? Taking the hit so I don't get priced out, worth it long term? Well, you're asking the question on a long term, so I'm going to say to you, yes, do it. Just know that Ronaldo might outscore the other two by himself this weekend, but you know that, right? Ronaldo any game could do the business, but if you're making that decision, you're comfy, Joey, that you're saying, look, I'm judging this over 5-6 game weeks or more, then yes, I think that pays back for you. In which case, fine, do it. Jassim Jazz says, Kane for game week 8, switch to Lukaku next week on wildcard. Thoughts one more, who to keep in game week 8, starting 11 out of Toney and Mbeumo. Thanks for the contents, especially City. You're very welcome, just saying. But if you're on wildcard, I would just go with Lukaku. You book in that transfer, something's going to go wrong, you change your opinion, or a player gets injured, next thing you know, you're taking -4s, -8s for it. Lukaku's got Brentford away. Are we certain that Kane outscores Lukaku? I mean, most people, I'm biased about Kane, right? Most people say Harry Kane looks like he can't hit a barn door at the moment. Now, I know that the game that most people missed against Aston Villa at home, and another game that most people missed, Wolves away in the Cup, Kane was fantastic in both of those games. But it weren't on the TV, so most people ain't seen jack shit of it. But no, if I was wildcarding, Harry Kane would not be in it. I would just go Lukaku, straight off. I wouldn't have a doubt in my mind about that. In terms of who to start out of Tony or Mbeumo, if that's ever a case, for me, Tony. Always Tony. Because at the end of the day, when it matters most, he's the talisman. Also, he's the one that's going to stay on the pitch for the 90 minutes. Remember, one thing, I'm looking to get both of those players, Tony and Mbeumo, in the near future. And it'll probably be Mbeumo first for me. Again, coming off of Jota or Greenwood next week. That's kind of my early plan for game week 9. But if it's a choice of which one to start, Tony. All day, Tony. Ian Wilson says, pick one manager in the world to join Spurs but has to stay for the next 10 years. Who are you picking? I can have any manager from any club. And I'm not saying he's the best, but I'd take Klopp. Because that's what I need in my life, is some rock and roll football. And that's the sort of football I want to watch. High energy, high intensity, try and win every game of football, press off the ball, with the ball. Love the way his teams play. And I think Jurgen Klopp could make most teams very challenging, to the extent of, let's say, Jurgen Klopp took over Wolves, hypothetically. Sorry to pick on Wolves. Jurgen Klopp takes over Wolves. I think Jurgen Klopp makes Wolves a team that would challenge for a Europa League spot. I'm not saying it could be anything more than that, but I think that would definitely happen. Would Pep Guardiola's style work at Wolves? I'm not so sure. Because I still think Guardiola, the way Guardiola teams play, you still got to have bloody good footballers. And he's an amazing technical and tactical coach, Guardiola. He's not given enough credit for his tactical defensively, by the way. But yeah, if I could have one manager, I think Klopp. I think what he's done at Liverpool's amazing. Harry Lewis says, evening James, hope you're well. Would you advise moving Rudiger on this week? Got one free transfer and Livramento is my first sub. You're good with Livramento, first sub there, mate. Triple Trapped In says, hello James, appreciate this may be on benching dilemmas tomorrow, but would you start Dennis or Harrison? I would start Harrison, purely because my instinct is that Rafinha doesn't play, in spite of the fact I'll probably play him myself. So Harrison. And I also think, in fact, to be honest, I think both players are just as likely to miss out as the other tomorrow. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Dennis is not in the Watford team that plays Liverpool. Ayub Seller says, hi James, should I swap Rudiger for Azpilicueta or just play one of Livramento or Semedo? Thanks. I mean, you've got brilliant benching coverage there, mate. Mine's fucking Matt Lowton. So you just play. Yeah, I mean, Livramento is going to play for me now as well, in all seriousness. So you just play it, yeah. Mo Edine says, in the past few years, we saw the 3-5-2 and 3-4-3 formations becoming more popular with teams. What is your opinion on the next trendy formation? I don't know yet, but I think it involves 2 centre forwards. And laugh all you like, I think it might even be 4-4-2. I think 4-4-2. I tried to fight for this for a podcast just about a year ago in the People's Poll, because I see trends of front twos coming back together. That I think it's becoming more and more common to see twos again, very subtly. So the next on trend I could see being a 2 up front in some form. Be it diamonds, be it a 4-1-3-2, perhaps with one out and out sitter, a flat 4 with fullbacks who don't go forward as much and play inverted, and then the 3 behind the 2 go and press high, and you really break the game into a defensive 5 and a forward 5. There you go, there's a shout for you, 4-1-3-2. Hamish Holmes says, thoughts on Spurs in the mid-90s? My Goodness. Met Clive Wilson recently. Top bloke. Think his best days were at QPR. Where I didn't realise he scored 7 out of 7 penalties in the league. It was a very good penalty taker, Clive Wilson. Tottenham got him at the back end of his career. Jerry Francis had been manager and obviously had Clive Wilson at Queen's Park Rangers previously. Wilson offered some competition to Justin Edinburgh at left back. Spurs in the mid-90s, awful mate, but sprinkled with some incredible talent on its day. Jurgen Klinsmann, Teddy Sheringham, Darren Anderton, Nick Barmby, with some good attacking players in the mid-90s. Bad team though. Not great. It was fun. We had some good cup runs. Like when we won at Anfield in the cup quarter final in '95, it was 8,000 of us on the Anfield Road. It was magic, absolutely magic. Owen Wilson says, would you put Bergwein back in 11 for Spurs against Newcastle? No, I wouldn't. I think ideally, and I think he's been a miss for us, by the way. And I didn't. If you'd asked me that 4 months ago, I would never have said that, or even thought it to be possible. But that's what happens when you get brainwashed by certain managers who your whole game has to be about defensive work. But he really looks a stronger player, more confident on the ball. I think the right thing though, mate, is the same team that beat Villa, the same team plays again, if possible. Obviously, that's kind of doubtful because of the South American players. But ideally, Tottenham pick the same team. Reward the 11 that played very well in the last game. Play them again is the right solution. Nishant says, hi James, Trent or Cancelo for next 4 game weeks? I would always have a slight favouritism for Trent, personally. But you are making a big saving with Cancelo versus Trent. But I think, yeah, he's not often will get questions like that. I'm not going to say Trent. Be close, in fairness. Cherie MC says, hi James, thoughts with Rudiger out week 8. Does Mbeumo score more than Sarr versus Liverpool? If yes, is it worth -4 for week 8? It's not just score more, right? For it to actually be worth it, you need Mbeumo to outscore Sarr by 5, sorry. So you probably need Mbeumo to get at least a 7, which admittedly if he gets a goal is what it should be. At least. But you also need Sarr to blank. Worth the hit? Not for me. Just play Ismaila Sarr. Remember, Liverpool without Fabinho tomorrow, without Alisson. Like, honestly, I would advise this to anybody who's got Ismaila Sarr, just play him tomorrow. Different atmosphere in the ground, new manager bounce. Talking of which, is a Watford fan in the chat. Joe Finley Batter. If you had to pick one on wildcard, would you go Reece James or Ben Chilwell? I'm leaning towards James. No, I'd probably go Chilwell, Joe. I'd probably go Chilwell. But as I've said numerous times, I'm not keen on having either. Razek says, hi James, my mum bought me a Newcastle shirt when I was 10, but they weren't good enough on FIFA for me to like them, so I went on to support Arsenal. I just needed to vent this mistake out at hard times. Well, I suggest you stay with Arsenal, mate. If you're about to jump on the bandwagon now just because they've got some rich owners, I'd rather you didn't do that, because I don't think much of people who do that. Harry Lewis says, imagine Suj was off sick and Mr. Mourinho was filling in. What would the pod be about? Probably his era managing Porto. Yeah, why not? Like where he actually found success when people didn't know who he was. Let's talk about that and maybe be nice to each other, because it's not gonna end nicely if we start talking about Premier League years. Mr. Gruntu said, who will be your choice for next Spurs manager? I tell you who I was thinking about the other night. I was looking on my timeline, and this happens every time England do badly, and England didn't do well on Wednesday. Although they played against a very frustrating opponent, as Portugal, France and Germany would testify from the summer. But I was actually thinking that actually Gareth Southgate, if it suddenly bombed, would actually be about right for Tottenham in the short term for the next 3-4 years or so. Good development. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good man manager. I think people actually want to play for him. I think tactically he's still developing, but he has shown us that he can play multiple different tactical formations. People are very quick to forget the good from the bad, right? That close to winning a major trophy for England, and we know, 80% of it was at home. But I mean, I loved his comment in the summer after the Germany game, where he said, I knew if I lost this game I was dead, because none of us like that team that he picked against Germany. But he picked the right team to win that football match. And I think actually, generally, he wants to play progressive football. I think he made a choice on that Germany game that it was a certain way that England had to play. I think he does want England to play attractive football and play like what we saw against Ukraine, what we saw when we really went at Denmark in the second half and extra time in the semi-final and stuff. The way we played the second half actually in Hungary not long ago. So ironically, I mean, it wouldn't be a first choice, but it was just something I was thinking about. Let's just say England lost to Albania and San Marino and didn't qualify, and he was out of a job. Then I think, yeah, why not? I think Pochettino, as I covered several times for me, shouldn't come back to Tottenham until all of the players that let him down previously have gone. And he starts again like he did the first time, with nothing there, no baggage. But yeah, listen, if he flops at PSG in the near future, he'll be... I mean, imagine they didn't qualify for the next stage of the Champions League, then he'll probably be Tottenham manager by January. But I'm sure having beat Man City, there won't be an issue there. I note that they're already about 6 points clear in Ligue 1 or so. So, I mean, Pochettino would be the one, but I just don't think it's right. I just want an attacking coach who plays progressive football, whose team will work their nuts off without the ball, and who I can go and support and cheer on every week. And the results will be what it will be, because for us to challenge top four is very, very difficult at the moment. I suspect it's generally, although I've just spoken about Southgate, it's probably a non-British manager. Like I'd love to have Bielsa for a couple of years. Not that I'm suggesting he wants out of Leeds, not the case at all. And why would he come to Tottenham? He wouldn't. But yeah, let's have someone like that. Let's have some fun with it. I'm sure after a year I'll be moaning about it. His teams can't defend and stuff. I want to listen. I need to enjoy football again after the last couple of years. Jovial says, I have Marcos Alonso, Nicola Pepe, Diogo Jota, Rafinha in my team. What should I do? Not a lot, mate. Don't think Marcos Alonso will play. I think Arsenal will probably start with the same 11 that drew with Brighton and obviously beat Tottenham the week before. Don't see that. Well, say same 11. Obviously, Xhaka's out long term. Lokonga played against Brighton. As I've said, I think with Rudiger out, I think Chilwell plays for Chelsea tomorrow. Jota, I think, starts, actually. Rafinha, I don't. But you don't want to get rid of him, right? So the right solution here really is get rid of Nicola Pepe is the first thing to do here. Get that moving out. And then you might decide you want to take a -4 to remove Marcos Alonso as well. I mean, you could do Pepe down to like an Embuemo or something, and Alonso to Trent, Cancelo, anything you like, right? We don't even have to come that far down. But yeah, Pepe would be the first one I'd be looking to move out. Milanda Villain says, hi James, don't think Tuchel would play Alonso with Rudiger missing. There you go. Do you think it's worth -4 for Alonso and Semedo out for Chilwell and Diaz? Or keep Alonso and get Laporte for Semedo for free? I would get Laporte for Semedo for free. You know, as soon as you take that -4, we're both wrong and Alonso plays. It's highly possible, isn't it? Sheila says Ronaldo and Shaw to Lukaku and Cancelo with 2 free transfers, or Shaw to White, Christensen and roll the second free transfer. I always think, Sheila, that generally speaking, when you're in indecisiveness and you can roll. I think that's the right move. I don't think there's any need to force Ronaldo to Lukaku this week now, personally. Can't see the need to force it. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure Chelsea will win at Brentford, and I would fancy Lukaku to score. But I think Leicester, Man United, and a lot of us think could be mad. Like, it could be 3-2 one way or the other. So United could lose 3-2 and Ronaldo could score twice, right? So I don't think there's the need to force that now. So I would just move Shaw on and roll the other. Adam says, play Duffy or Aspi. Honestly, play the Chelsea player, mate. Because Chelsea could win 1-0 and Azpilicueta could score. He's got that knack, hasn't he? But I'd certainly understand that those with Duffy will want to play him this week. I get that. Sam Robertson says, crazy to go without any Chelsea or City defence and stick with Cash, Shaw and Trent. No, not crazy, Sam. You know the risk. You don't need me to tell you the risk. I'm sure you don't. You know what the the possibility is there, and you know that most other people are probably on one or the other. But then I'm in a position now where if I don't take a -4, then I've got no Chelsea or Manchester City this week, and I got no Liverpool either. So who's crazy now? Ash says Rudiger and Sarr to Foden and Christensen -4, or Rudiger to Diaz and play Sarr. Yeah, just play Sarr. Just play Sarr. David Martinez, hi James, hope you're well. I want to bring Cancelo in for Semedo this weekend, but to do so I have to switch Ronaldo to Lukaku and take a -4. Worth it? Question. Have a good one. Well, yeah, to contradict. I think if you're happy to judge Lukaku versus Ronaldo over the next 4, I think you'll get your money back. I assume you're going to captain Salah this week, like many, David. And the beauty is obviously you're getting Cancelo in. But a little bit like what I advised with the person with Cody earlier, Semedo's a bit more expensive, so it's a little bit more different. But he doesn't have to go, Semedo. Want versus need, David, something we talk about a lot. You want it, you don't need it, but I quite like it. Michael Svedin says, thoughts getting Son on wildcard this game week? Not for me. Not for me. Like, honestly, if Son blanks at Newcastle, you'll want to sell him. That's generally how I'd feel. And I don't really ever want any player like that on a wildcard unless I know I'm coming off. Because with West Ham, Man United afterwards, and Everton, if Tottenham bomb on Sunday, and we might, then you're going to be in regret for it. I would be targeting getting Heung-min Son in game week 12. So, are there players you can put in there that will placehold for you for 4 weeks? Well, yeah. Manchester City players. Kevin De Bruyne possibly even. If the money works, it might not. Completely understand that. Mason Mount's at lower. I'm pretty sure he'll come back into the Chelsea team tomorrow. There are a few alternatives. Sonny's interesting in the sense that there isn't anyone else at that value at the moment, but perhaps the likes of Jadon Sancho might well show through eventually. I mean, it's just not on the table at the moment, is it? Remember them people like, oh my God, I've got to have Sancho prior to game week 1. What happened to them people? It's probably the same as the guy who keeps telling me to buy Morpay every week, actually. Razik says, what do we think Alonso's chance for a start is? 20-30% for me. Yep, I'd agree with that. Daniel Donnelly, have you ever cheated when playing Monopoly? I don't think so. But my missus gets angry when I beat her, right? It's something every now and again, like once a year, she's like, I want to play Monopoly. So we play Monopoly and then she loses and she gets upset. Alfredo Demetrius, I want to play my second wild card. Can I do it? No, mate. Static said, hi James, missed the start. Any idea how long Rudiger is out for? No, that's something I need to investigate. What do you think of switching Alonso to Diaz for a hit? I'd keep Rudiger on the bench for next week. I mean, you don't want to go in with Rudiger and Alonso this week. That's grim, isn't it? I prefer Alonso to Cancelo. You might already have, in fairness. I mean, shit if Alonso plays, but yeah, like many others have suggested, we think that probably the connection is that Rudiger out means that Chilwell will play at left wing back for Chelsea. Patrick said, did you watch Football Italia back in the day? Who was your team? Fav Platters from that I think you mean favourite players from that era. Lazio, Gascoigne. I mean, that was fairly obvious for me, wasn't it, originally? Loved the Milan team. I mean, defensively, Baresi, Maldini, originally Costa Curta, and now, fucking hell, what a team. They weren't bad going forward with the 3 Dutchmen and stuff as well. What a brilliant team. But Lazio, because of Gascoigne, before I knew they were racist and stuff. What? Just go and look at how many times I've been fined by UEFA. Andrew Sands says, evening young man, do you expect to see a bounce effect with Newcastle? And if so, which 3 assets appeal to most? Fuck me. Keep up the work you do. I'm off to the urinals, or is it urinals? It's urinals, but I do understand that in America most people pronounce it urinals. But yeah, this was a big debate at the meetup we had last Saturday, urinals or urinals. I suggest my friend Sim, who was saying urinals, watches too much American TV, and that's why he thinks it's urinals, because it's urinals as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Newcastle assets, no mate, stop. Pull yourself back. There are only 3 Newcastle assets who should be remotely interesting to you, in my opinion, and they are St. Maximin, Callum Wilson, and Javier Manquillo, by default of being a playing 4.0 defender as it stands. But no, I did a bit of video analysis, quite detailed, for our advanced tier patrons last night on St. Maximin, and basically what's impacting him and why is his data suddenly kind of shooting up. It's fairly obvious, actually. He steps up when Wilson isn't there, and I think feels the need not to when Wilson isn't, and Wilson's back. So I'm really interested to see what the impact's going to be on St. Maximin. Doesn't mean he won't tear it up against Tottenham. He's very capable. But actually, yeah, I think Wilson's return actually might be bad for St. Maximin. He'd been a no-buy zone for me. I'd be far more interested in Callum Wilson, and I do really have a close eye on that for me, myself personally. Very short term, game week 14-15, I've got Norwich at home, Burnley at home, and I'll have a bet I'll buy one of them then, because then I'm looking to wildcard in 16, and they walk into Leicester away, Liverpool away, Man City at home, Man United at home, and before that they've got Arsenal away. So literally those 2 games is just something that's going to work probably quite nicely for me. I wouldn't be surprised if I get a defensive player for those 2 games as well, just really short term. Otherwise, no. And I think Wilson, when it comes around, Wilson will be the more likely for me, personally. I'll have my eye on him. Because it might be that I'm looking to get Tony in the near future, and it might be that I take a longer term view and go, do you know what, if I just cut it off now and make a decision over the next 7 or 8 rather than a shorter term, might be that Wilson works for me. But I'll examine it as and when it comes around. I'll leave it there for now, guys. Thanks very much. Apologies to those of you as questions I didn't get to. If you want to take a screenshot and DM me your question, happy to answer it. As long as it's before midnight tonight, I'll respond to you before midnight tonight. That's UK time. If you message me in the morning, you got no chance, because deadline stream will be 10 a.m. UK time, and I really need half a kind of lie-in at the moment, to be honest with you. But yeah, send me a DM if you want to. Happy to answer your questions. If you send me a screenshot of your team and go, "Thoughts, James," I'm going to assume that you're someone that definitely didn't listen to this stream. Okay, guys, as I said, deadline stream tomorrow. We'll be back with the main podcast on Monday, reviewing the 9 games played, obviously, over the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Remember, it's obviously Arsenal Palace on Monday Night Football this week. People's Poll will be back on Tuesday. Don't know topic yet. Wednesday will be Sky. Thursday's Clash of the Correspondents, I can tell you, is Crystal Palace versus Newcastle with McTavius and FPL Footballer to get the Geordie view on Newcastle assets then. And Palace are coming to good fixtures. And I'm sure Si will give his thoughts on the Newcastle takeover, so you can get a Newcastle perspective on that as well. I'll be streaming again next Friday. Time might change. It's very subject to what's happening with my son at the moment. If you'd like to support our content, www.patreon.com/planetfpl. An additional 5 podcasts each week from intermediate tier, and additional videos every weekday from advanced tier as well. I can tell you podcasts next week on our Patreon will be our Q&A on Monday. Tuesday will be UEFA Champions League Fantasy Preview. Wednesday will be Tottenham, our podcast focusing on our 2 clubs. Thursday will be a kit quiz that's provided by FPL Mango, one of our patrons. And Friday will be our Game Week 9 preview show. Other than that, maybe see many of you in the chat for the deadline stream tomorrow. I hope for the rest of you, your arrows are green this weekend. Have a great weekend. Be nice to each other. And for the benefit of those on the audio, cue music, please, man child.